New Yorker writer Jane Mayer gave an interesting interview to NPR's Terry Gross a few days ago. And the topic was whether Donald Trump might end up being the first president to ever be criminally charged. Now, as I've said before, I maintain and believe that Donald Trump will never see the inside of a prison cell. Some people write to me and they tell me I'm wrong. Well, we can't say I'm wrong yet. It hasn't happened yet. Some people write to me and say, David, when you say that, it makes it less likely Trump will go to prison. I don't think me saying it makes it any less likely. But the fact that I don't think Trump will ever see the inside of a prison cell doesn't mean he won't be charged. And as Jane Mayer points out in this interview with NPR, which you can find online, there are a number of viable paths to Donald Trump ending up with criminal charges against him, being the first president to have such charges against him. Right now, we know of two possible criminal charges, investigations with possible criminal charges coming. The first is the investigation in Georgia over Donald Trump's now known multiple phone calls trying to get election results changed in the 2020 Georgia presidential election. The second one, and the one that actually predates the Georgia probe, is the one led by Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance, which is looking at Trump's financial practices. And in that one, tax, banking, insurance fraud, all on the table. And that's the one where they finally got a decision from the Supreme Court that indeed Trump's financial records must be turned over, and they have been. So now Cyrus Vance has those records. Now, as I've said before, the most likely scenario is some kind of financial charges, probably against others at the Trump organization. But still, it's possible Donald Trump could be criminally charged in that investigation. Jane Mayer addresses many of the important questions. For example, Terry Gross asks her whether even if Trump committed crimes, we should just move on because Trump is gone. And Jane Mayer points out, listen, it's true that lots of the countries that charge former leaders with crimes are not necessarily the countries we're trying to emulate. But she argues that if the crimes Trump committed aren't even related to the presidency, if these are business crimes, for example, what reason is there not to pursue them? And this is an important point. We know that every president makes decisions that lead to deaths, but we don't charge presidents in those cases because it would make being president impossible. I'm not saying that I'm against war crimes charges. That's not at all what I'm saying. But every time you cut aid or shift military resources, send troops into war, change some welfare program, do a drone strike, every presidency leads to civilian deaths, some of which could have been avoided, right or wrong. U.S. presidents don't get charged with that stuff. And we can have a debate about that. But that's not what we're talking about here. If we find out Trump was laundering money through his business, who cares if he was president for a 4-year period? It's unrelated to him being president. And there shouldn't be a culture of impunity, as Jane Mayer correctly points out. The possible financial crimes and fraud in New York are significant. Taking tax deductions on things that aren't tax deductible to the tune of millions of dollars, including even some of those hush money payments that Donald Trump made. Exaggerating or diminishing the claimed value of real estate to manipulate lenders and taxation authorities to his benefit. There's a very long list here, and these are crimes in the state of New York. On the tail end of this, the question of prison comes up. Are the things being investigated theoretically punishable by prison time? Yes. Would Trump get prison time even if found guilty? It's possible. Would he serve it? I can't imagine. Jane Mayer says in the interview, she believes Trump would flee the country if he actually were sentenced to prison time. The truth is, I don't think that's very likely. But we're in such unprecedented territory that it's very difficult to predict. My sense is the most likely scenario is there's no prison time and Trump doesn't have to flee. I still believe that's the most obvious and logical scenario. The importance to me of criminally charging Trump isn't to put him in prison. It's twofold. First, it's to show that a president isn't above the law. And maybe that will prevent another president from being as corrupt and criminal as Donald Trump. Maybe that's naive, but that's one important element of this. Secondly, as a very practical matter, if there are criminal charges against Donald Trump, it could just keep him too busy to even think about running again in 2024. And that would be a very good thing. We'll have more coverage of this on the David Pakman Show Instagram. You can follow us there at David Pakman Show. Follow me on Instagram at david.pakman. If you want to see me, what would be the right word? And that's not really accosted, smothered by a dog that doesn't understand the concept of personal space. Follow me on Instagram at david.pakman. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Pakman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. Takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft. And it's free. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com/Pakman.